Have you ever wondered what your loved one is learning in the afterlife, while you're still counting the days since their departure? While time here moves forward like a slow and silent wave of grief, something entirely different is unfolding. On the other side, the soul, your loved one's soul, is not resting in silence. It is awakening in ancient spiritual traditions and through powerful revelations like those found in the trance readings of Edgar Cayce. It's said that the first year after death is not a void, but a sacred cycle of transformation. And just before that first anniversary, the soul reaches a threshold, a moment of deep cosmic realization. In this video, I will reveal 9 cosmic lessons the soul learns before completing its first year beyond the physical world. These are not vague ideas or comforting thoughts. They are spiritual truths whispered from beyond the veil. Lessons that shape the soul's evolution and may very well mirror what you, the one left behind, are meant to understand too. So stay with me until the very end, because as we explore what the soul discovers in that first year, you may begin to feel their presence again, not as someone who left, but as someone who continues to grow, and perhaps to guide you. The very first lesson the soul embraces after death is one of profound liberation, letting go of the illusion that it was ever just a body. In the days following the transition, the soul often hovers close to the earthly realm, still sensing the pull of the physical world it once inhabited. It may linger near loved ones, feel drawn to familiar places, or even try to communicate, not yet fully aware that it no longer breathes, walks, or suffers in the same way. But as weeks turn into months, and the 6-month mark passes, a gentle but undeniable realization begins to dawn. The body was never the true self. It was a temporary vessel, a sacred instrument through which the soul expressed, learned, and loved, but it was never the essence. The soul begins to see its own light, feel its own vastness, and recognize that death was not an end, but a return. Like a butterfly emerging from the cocoon, it awakens to a new sense of being weightless, boundless, radiant. This release is not always immediate. Some souls cling to their old identity, especially if they passed suddenly or held tightly to the material world. But slowly, with the help of guides or loved ones in spirit, the soul loosens its grip and rises. It begins to understand that pain, aging, and limitation belong to the body, but the soul itself is eternal, free, for you. Still living, this lesson is a quiet invitation to begin seeing your loved one not in what was lost, but in what still is. In light, in presence, in the subtle warmth that fills the room when you remember them not with sorrow, but with love. As the soul moves deeper into its journey, it enters a space of reflection, not only on what it did, but more intimately on what it felt. This is not judgment, it is understanding. In the quiet of the other realm, without the noise of the physical world, unresolved emotions rise to the surface like ripples returning to the center of the still pond. Guilt, regret, left unspoken, forgiveness never offered. All of it comes back, not as punishment, but as vibration. The soul begins to feel the emotional imprints it left behind, especially in the hearts of those who remain. It may feel your grief as a subtle ache, your anger as a distant heaviness, your longing as a cord still connecting your hearts. These are not burdens, it recognizes them as opportunities. In this sacred review, the soul starts to understand the consequences of suppressed emotions it carried during life. The pain of not expressing love freely, the wounds caused by fear, the missed moments that now echo in memory. It sees how those unhealed parts shaped its earthly path, and yours. But it also begins to send healing back through dreams, signs, or sudden waves of peace when you least expect them. This is why, at around the 6 to 9 month mark after death, many people experience vivid dreams of reconciliation, emotional breakthroughs, or the feeling that their loved one is trying to say something. It is the soul reaching through the veil to soothe what was left open. And sometimes, it's a soft whisper asking you to forgive them or to forgive yourself. Because when the soul begins to make peace with its own unfinished emotions, it also helps heal your dot around the midpoint of its first year beyond the veil. The soul enters a sacred moment of realization, one that feels both humbling and illuminating. It begins to see, often for the first time with clarity, how its life rippled outward into the lives of others. Not just through grand actions or dramatic events, but through every word, every gesture, every silence. The soul witnesses memories some it had forgotten, replayed not from its own perspective, but from the hearts of those it touched. A kind word spoken to a stranger that sparked hope. A moment of impatience that planted pain. A sacrifice no one ever noticed. A smile that changed someone's day. Every encounter becomes a thread in the great tapestry of interconnectedness, and the soul begins to see that nothing it did existed in isolation. This realization is not meant to shame, but to awaken a deep sense of responsibility and awe. The soul feels gratitude for the love it gave, and a gentle ache for the love it withheld. It sees how its actions shaped the emotional landscapes of others, and how some of those effects are still unfolding even after its departure. For those still living, this is often the time when they begin to notice random memories resurfacing, moments they hadn't thought about in years, suddenly coming back with clarity and emotion. That's not random. It may be the soul gently drawing your attention to the imprint it left, inviting you to complete a circle, to offer thanks, to release blame, or to simply remember with love. Because when a soul becomes aware of its true impact, it begins to guide you to become aware of yours. As the soul moves past the halfway point of its first year beyond the physical world, it begins to remember not just who it was in its most recent life, but who it has always been. Freed from the constraints of the body, and after releasing emotional weights, the soul starts to hear the ancient echo of its true purpose, its soul contract, its mission. The reason it came into the world. At first, this realization may come as a gentle stirring, like a melody long forgotten, but instantly familiar. It sees how certain relationships, challenges, and turning points were not random, they were chosen. The soul recognizes patterns that repeated not out of fate, but out of the need to grow. It remembers the lessons it came to learn, and those it came to help others discover. Some souls feel peace in this moment, having lived close to their purpose. Others may feel sorrow, realizing they were often distracted by fear, doubt, or the illusion of control. But even this sorrow is healing, for it opens the door to grace. The soul understands that all is not lost. Nothing is wasted. Even what seemed like failure was part of the unfolding. This deep reconnection stirs something in those still on earth as well. Around this time, between 8 and 10 months after the passing, many people begin to feel called to do something in honor of the one who's gone, to start a project, create art, change a habit, or help others. It may feel spontaneous, but it is often the soul whispering, "Continue what I began, live what I forgot, grow where I stopped." Because when the soul remembers its purpose, it often awakens yours. By the time the soul approaches the 9th or 10th month after its transition, it begins to experience a tender yet essential shift, one that marks the deepening of its evolution. It learns to gently detach from its earthly attachments. But this is not a cold separation. It is an act of love, of expansion, of allowing what was once intimate to now be sacred. The soul starts to loosen its ties, not because it forgets, but because it remembers something greater. It understands that clinging to the physical world, even to those it deeply loved, can keep both itself and the living anchored in a state of longing. And so, with reverence, it begins to release the old home, the belongings, the identities it once carried. It does so slowly, carefully, with the hope that those left behind will find peace in letting go as well. Yet this detachment is not abandonment. In fact, it allows the soul to be present in a more expansive way, no longer limited by form, time, or space. Love becomes more subtle, yet more profound. It shows up in a thought that warms your heart, a breeze that brushes your cheek just when you speak their name, or a sudden inner calm that settles your grief. The soul is not gone. It is just no longer bound. This lesson often mirrors a turning point for the living too. Around this time, many people begin to feel the grief shift from sharp pain to softer presence. They may no longer cry every day, but instead feel a quiet companionship that words cannot explain. That's not moving on, it's moving deeper. It is the soul and the loved one learning to meet again, beyond the physical dot, because when the soul detaches from the world, it makes room for a love that is eternal, not temporary. As the soul approaches the final quarter of its first earthly year in the spirit world, it begins to transcend the illusion of time. What once felt linear, birth, life, death, now expands into something eternal. The soul begins to grasp a profound truth. That connection does not die with the body. It is timeless. It is sacred. It simply changes form. It sees how the threads of love continue to vibrate, even when physical contact is ended. It senses that a simple memory from you can reach it like a prayer, like a song carried on the wind. It recognizes that what was true and pure between souls is never lost, only evolves. Even across dimensions, the bonds formed through kindness, forgiveness, sacrifice, or unconditional love remain intact. This understanding is not just comforting, it is empowering. The soul realizes that it can still participate in the lives of those it loved, but in new ways, as a guide, as inspiration, as a silent protector. It may send signs not just to say, "I am here," but to say, "We are still walking together." The line between presence and absence begins to dissolve. And for those still on earth, this is the time when many begin to speak to their departed loved ones, not out of desperation, but with a sense of quiet knowing. A whispered thank you. Before bed, a thought offered into the stars. These small acts of connection are often answered, whether through dreams, synchronicities, or moments of deep inner peace. They are not your imagination. They are echoes of an eternal relationship. Because when the soul realizes that love is timeless, it begins to teach you how to love beyond death. By the 11th month after crossing over, the soul begins to witness something both humbling and beautiful, the transformation of those it left behind. From the spirit realm, it watches not just with memory, but with expanded perception. It sees the quiet strength in the one who wakes each day despite the sorrow. It notices the ways you've grown, healed, fallen, and risen again, and it feels each of those moments as deeply as you do. The soul does not judge. It honors. It recognizes how its absence has shaped your path, not to punish or to test you, but as part of a mysterious unfolding. Every tear shed, every gesture of remembrance, every attempt to keep going, becomes a part of your evolution. And the soul, now more aware than ever, sees that its own journey is deeply intertwined with yours. Still, sometimes, the soul may attempt to encourage you from beyond, sending you dreams of strength, aligning you with people or paths that support your healing, or simply being present in those moments when you feel unexpectedly held. It rejoices not in your suffering, but in your resilience, not in your letting go, but in your becoming. This stage is also when many on earth begin to reinterpret the loss. The pain doesn't vanish, but something deeper emerges, meaning. You may begin to sense that the love you shared, the lessons they lived, are living on through you. That you carry a part of them not as weight, but as light. Because when the soul witnesses your growth, it understands something extraordinary, that even in its physical absence, it is still helping you become who you were meant to be. As the 12th month approaches, something sacred begins to unfold. The soul, having traversed layers of memory, healing, release, and reconnection, now prepares to enter a state of deeper integration with the cosmos. It's not a final destination, but a shift into unity, into wholeness, into the eternal current from which it once emerged. This stage is not marked by grand events or dramatic visions. Instead, it arrives with stillness, like a calm before a divine merging. The soul feels its individuality softening, not disappearing, but blending into something greater, the vast intelligence of spirit, the creative pulse of the universe. It retains its essence, its love, its memories, but no longer clings to form, name, or story. It becomes part of the great tapestry once more. This integration is not a loss of self, but the fulfillment of it. The soul now sees how its joys and sorrows, triumphs, and wounds all played a role in the evolution of something much larger. It sees how every life, its own and others, are strands in a single living thread that stretches across dimensions. And with this realization comes peace. A peace so deep it needs no words. Around this time, many people on earth may feel a quiet shift as well. The sharp edges of grief begin to smooth. The soul's presence becomes less about signs or dreams, and more about inner knowing. It is no longer just out there, it is in here, woven into your thoughts, your choices, your being. Because when the soul prepares to merge with the eternal, it leaves behind a gift, the reminder that you too are part of that divine flow. As the first earthly year comes full circle, the soul crosses a threshold. It is no longer only the one who left, it is becoming the one who now watches, guides, and whispers through the veil. Having released what needed releasing, remembered what was essential, and merged with the divine current, the soul begins its sacred role as a spiritual companion to those it loved. This is not automatic. It is a choice. And most souls, especially those whose bond with the living was pure and profound, choose to remain connected, not in attachment, but in service. They become part of a loving intelligence that supports your journey subtly, faithfully, endlessly. Not all signs are dramatic. Some are invisible. A nudge of intuition, a sense of being protected, the sudden clarity during a hard decision. These are the quiet footprints of a soul who has chosen to walk with you, even without a body. At this stage, the soul begins to work through higher vibrations. It may send inspiration instead of words. It may manifest through synchronicity rather than appearance. Its love becomes like oxygen, unseen, but vital. Its mission now is not only to evolve, but to assist you in evolving as well. And for the one who remains on earth, this moment brings a revelation. They are not gone. They have become something more. You no longer search outside for them, you begin to listen within. You trust the signs. You recognize their essence in moments of beauty, strength, and stillness. Because the final lesson is this: death is not an end. It is a transformation into purpose. And the soul, after a year of luminous becoming, returns not as absence, but as guidance. Now that you've walked through these 9 cosmic lessons, you can begin to see death not as a departure, but as a metamorphosis, an awakening into greater truth. The soul, in the span of 1 earth year, travels through remembrance, healing, love, and finally, service. It is not lost. It is evolving. And through every phase, it reaches out to you, not to haunt, but to help. If you felt a shift in your own soul this past year, if you've noticed signs, dreams, or subtle awakenings, perhaps it's because they've never left. They've simply changed form. So now, knowing all this, how will you listen? How will you honor the voice that still speaks across the veil? Because when you learn what the soul learns, You begin to live in a new way, not in fear of death, but in partnership with life. Let me know in the comments, which of these cosmic lessons resonated with your own journey? And remember, this is not the end. It is the beginning of deeper understanding.